We have already done economies and diseconomies of scale. So let me revise it a bit. Economies of scale is when the average cost goes down or declines or reduces as output increases. There comes a point where the average cost is at its lowest and the output has increased. After that point, when the firm increases its output and starts growing further, the cost starts to increase. That point is called diseconomies of scale, whereas economies of scale is where the cost reduces with the increase in output. There are quite a few reasons why firms experience economies and diseconomies of scale. Now, this U-shaped curve is the short-term cost curve for any business. Short-term cost curve. Which cost curve? Short-term average cost curve, right? This is not the long-term average cost curve. Why? Let's have a look. The short-term average cost curve will be a U-shaped curve. At first, the cost will fall. They will reach an optimum level and then they will start increasing. This is where the businesses are experiencing internal economies and diseconomies of scale. It means that there are internal reasons due to which they achieve economies of scale, such as specialization, such as good management, such as investment in good capital. And diseconomies of scale are experienced due to internal reasons such as mismanagement, such as poor communication, such as burnout of people. If you are not increasing the number of people and assigning a lot of jobs to single people, then obviously they will experience burnout. But how is burnout related to increasing costs? Because in burnouts there will be increased absenteeism, there will be more mistakes, you might have to discard some output because of the mistakes. That is why the cost will increase. In a very capital intensive industry such as oil refining, long run average costs are a bit different. Long run average cost curve is a downward sloping curve, and it happens in practicality this is a long run average cost curve where you have the slope equal to 0, the flat average cost curve. How does a business experience this flat average cost curve? Let's have a look at it. When the output reaches a level where the cost is optimum, means the cost cannot fall below that output, which in this case is this one. This is the downward sloping long run average cost curve, but after this point the cost does not start increasing right away, as we can see here in this curve, right? The cost will sustain at this point for some level of time or for some period of time till the output keeps increasing. Why does this happen? Obviously, the business has encountered specialization, they invest in capital, they do it so that they can sustain the lowest possible cost, and the cost will remain constant over a large range of output, and this point will be called the minimum efficient scale. The cost will stay at the minimum efficient scale, means at the lowest possible cost for certain period of time in the long run, right? So this is the long run average cost curve. For which industries? Capital intensive industries, because the purpose of investing in heavy capital or high tech capital is to sustain the lowest possible cost for the longest possible period of time. If they can sustain lowest possible cost, they will stay profitable for a longer period of time. Then we have external economies and diseconomies of scale. Diseconomies of scale is a point where the output starts increasing and the cost also starts increasing when we talk about diseconomies of scale, which is this point, right? So the effects of external diseconomies of scale, what do we mean by that, and why are there two curves instead of one curve when we are talking about external diseconomies of scale? So one difference is that in internal diseconomies of scale, you have only one curve, but in external diseconomies of scale you have two curves, means the cost of the firms change due to external factors. The average cost will be reduced not by changes in output of the firm, rather by external factors such as the industry output, right? So the figure shows external economies of scale. Economies of scale is this part, okay? External economies of scale result in a downward shift. The entire curve has shifted and there is a downward shift in the long run average cost of the curve, long run average cost of the firm. Why a downward shift? Because we are talking about economies of scale where the cost has to reduce. Okay, the cost has to reduce. How are we going to observe it? Let's mark an output. Let's mark the optimum output. Let's talk about the lowest possible cost. LRAC is the first or initial long run average cost curve for this firm when diseconomies of scale had not economies of scale had not occurred and there was no change in the industry output. This is the lowest average cost for at this output. But when certain factors in the industry changed or output of the industry changed or anything in the industry changed that led to external economies of scale, means the costs were driven further down. So at the same level of output we can see that the costs are driven further down. So in external economies of scale, the factors responsible for reduction in cost are not internal, they are external. And when external economies of scale occur, then the cost shifts downwards. But entire cost curve shifts down, it experiences a parallel shift. But when we talk about diseconomies of scale, there can be certain external factors that can cause diseconomies of scale, means the cost will increase. So in this case, the lower curve is the initial curve and the entire curve shifts up when the firm experiences diseconomies of scale. For example, let's take this output. At this output, this is the cost, diseconomies of scale that the firm would have experienced in case it would have been internal factors. But when there are internal factors, we don't change the output because it does not change because of the output. At the same output level, we can see that costs have increased, right? So this is how you represent external economies and diseconomies of scale on the graph. Let's move further. Types of internal economies of scales. Type means that what are the factors that actually lead to internal economies of scale, and the effect of external diseconomies of scale, right? As the firm increases its scale of operations, means its output, there are a number of reasons responsible for declining average costs. Types of internal economies of scale, okay, the effect of external, okay, there are a number of factors this point is saying that there are a number of factors that the firm experiences as it expands its operation and grows bigger in size or in maybe capitalization, maybe in output. It experiences certain factors due to which they experience a decline in the average cost. Let's cut out this line because this line does not fit whatever is written here. Okay, let's start from here. Buying economies. What does that mean? This is the best type of economies of scale, because even when I explain economies of scale, I talk a lot about discount that the business will receive because they will be buying raw material in bulk and a lot of raw material, right? And in order to retain the biggest buyer, the suppliers would offer huge discounts as compared to the discounts offered to smaller firms that buy small amount of raw material. Okay, so large firms that buy raw material in bulk, they place large order for capital equipment as well, and they receive huge discounts as I have explained, right? Also, when they buy material, they pay less for the material purchased, obviously because they are availing huge discount, right? And sometimes they also receive better treatment, such as speed of delivery. That better treatment may cost supplier the money that they are paying out of their profit in order to retain this buyer. Okay, suppliers always want to retain buyers who buy in bulk so that they can obviously make profits, and even if they have to offer discounts, they would be the ones who will be suppliers of the biggest producers in the industry. That will always keep them, that will always give them an edge over other suppliers. Obviously, when others would know, okay, the highest producers, they buy from them, they would be compelled to buy from the same supplier as well. So the business of supplier may also improve or increase. Second one is selling economies. The total cost of processing orders, packaging the goods and transporting them does not rise in line with the number of orders. This happens sometimes in businesses, that even if you increase the number of orders that you have to dispatch, the cost does not increase. For example, it costs less than twice as much to send 10,000 washing machines to customers than it does to send 5,000 washing machines. Let me give you a very practical and relatable example. If we here in Pakistan place order for something that is to come from Punjab, for example, right? What happens? We receive it after a few days. Why? Because if I am the only one who has placed the order, they will wait for certain number of orders to pile up so that they can send the shipment together. They do not want to send one shipment in one go because it's going to cost them a lot. When they, for example, if the cost payment for the shipment is like suppose 5,000 for 1 kg, for under 1 kg, even if they are sending something to me which is 1 kg, they will have to pay 5,000. If they are piling up 3-4 orders or 5 orders which are 1 kg each, they will still have to pay 5,000, right? So it will divide the cost in 5 orders, and it can be calculated as that they only had to pay 1k per order. Or if they send 1 kg to me on its own without waiting for other orders, they will have to pay 5k for one order, right? So this is not feasible and this becomes very expensive for them. So selling economies, as a seller you can experience this, that you can ship in bulk to save costs, right? A whole page advertisement in a newspaper or magazine is usually less than twice the cost of half a page advertisement. Why? Because if you assign half a page to one advertisement, then you will have to collect and select other advertisements that could be placed on that page. Means half your page is either wasted, or you have to make more effort to find advertisements that fit there. So, buying and selling economies of scale are sometimes referred to as marketing economies together, because it's buying and selling both. Then we have managerial economies of scale, means when management has expertise, and large companies or large firms, they always hire specialist staff in key posts such as the managerial post, and then they spread their pay over a high number of units. Obviously, when you do costing, you will study costing in a lot of detail in business studies, but in A levels, not in O levels. You will study that each and every cost is allocated over all the units. Sometimes only direct cost, sometimes indirect cost. So they are assigned. For example, हमने एक यूनिट मैन्युफैक्चर करने में कितना पैसा लगाया, तो उसमें वो पैसा भी होगा विच यू आर पेइंग टू योर एम्प्लॉइज, राइट. उसको पार्ट ऑफ द कॉस्टिंग बनाएंगे और उसको भी थोड़ा थोड़ा एलोकेट करेंगे. डिफरेंट तरीके होते हैं करने के, ठीक है ना. ऑल्सो प्रोक्योरमेंट के लिए यू हैव अ स्पेशलिस्ट, वो बायर होता है. प्रोक्योरमेंट डिपार्टमेंट का काम होता है टू परचेज रॉ मटेरियल फॉर द company. So you employ specialist buyers, accountants, managers, designers, etc. Why? Because you want to increase efficiency of the firm and reduce the cost of production. Why? Because agar to you have hired specialist staff, they will make less mistakes, they will use the machines properly, they will require less training, तो आपकी cost नीचे आ जाएगी. And when they are making less mistakes, they are meeting all orders perfectly, they are helping the firm build customer relationships properly. Obviously, they will be able to increase demand for the products and services of the company and increase their revenue also. Next is labor economies. Labor economies is when the firms, they engage in division of labor and they assign specialist jobs to particular people. For example, what Ford did was they did division of labor. Assembly department was different, tire department was different, engine department was different, interior department was different, exterior department was different. Means each department, if suppose tire department, they are working only on the tire, they are least bothered about what is happening with the rest of the car, but they are just working on the tire. That way people or firms can save time and cost as well. But there is another cost associated with it. For example, if the employees get bored due to division of labor and they experience burnout, they start getting absent frequently, they start hating their work, then obviously it will lead to increased costs, and that will be diseconomies of scale. Financial economies of scale. It means that it's easier and cheaper for the firm to raise finances. Why cheaper? Doesn't the bank give loan to people at the same interest rate? The answer is no. The banks also favor bigger clients. For example, if firm A goes to the bank and asks for a loan of 1 million and the bank has say 5% interest, another firm goes to the bank and asks for 100 million loan, the bank would want to secure this client because the interest on 100 million, 5% of 100 million is way bigger than 10%, 5% of 10 million or 1 million, right? So the bank would want to secure this client. And if this client says, I am not going to pay 5%, they will say, okay, let's do it 4.75, because obviously it's percentage. So 0.75, a 0.25 is also a good offer, right? So if they say no, I will only pay 4.5, the bank will say, okay, yes, done. So bank also offers special treatment to firms who are bigger firms, and if they go to the banks to obtain loans, obviously it's easier for them, and the cost of obtaining capital will also reduce for them if they are lent money at a lower rate. Bank often charge large borrowers less as per the dollars borrowed in order to attract them, as I explained, because they know that the administrative costs of operating and processing large loans are not significantly higher than the cost of dealing with the small loans. Now, this is in technicality of internal operations in the bank, the cost to the bank, which I'm not aware of, so I'm not going to explain that in a lot of detail. We just need to know that banks do offer less percentage interest to large borrowers. Large firms can also raise finances through shares, which is not available for sole traders and partnerships. So sole traders and partnerships, they cannot achieve financial economies of scale, whereas companies which companies, public limited companies, not private, because public limited companies can only raise share capital, private limited cannot. The larger and better known the companies are, the more willing people are to buy their shares. So overall financial economies means that it's easier for the firm to raise finances, whether they want to raise it through bank loans, or they want to raise it by selling shares. Technical economies of scale is very common these days, and it's very popular ever since we entered the technological revolution and everything became tech intensive. The larger the output, the more viable it becomes to use large technologically advanced machinery. If you want to increase output, you would not find any company increasing the number of workers these days. Rather, they invest in high tech capital. How does it help them reduce their costs? Because they are investing so much in the capital and in the machinery. It helps them reduce the cost by increasing the output, by reducing the wastage, and by efficiently utilizing raw material, and by making less mistakes as compared to people. Machine is always more efficient than human beings, so this machine is likely to be more efficient, and it produces more output with a lower average cost as compared to average cost of smaller firms, because smaller firms may also have machines. They definitely will have machines, because nobody wants people to manufacture stuff and make mistakes unless it's niche marketing and it's a specialized product where you're charging premium prices. But in case where machines are manufacturing output even for small businesses, then their machines are not as efficient as the larger machine. Then research and development economies, it means that you bring the cost down by investing more in research and development. The more money you put into research and development department, the more you can reduce your average cost by developing more efficient methods of production and raise the total revenue by developing new products, because the research and development department will find out new products that are in demand in the market. The research and development department, which is part of the marketing department, will also find, it can be part of marketing, it can be research and development in a standalone manner. So the research and development department can find out what segment of the market has unmet needs, or in the field of, say, medicine, for example, we keep getting new medicine because each and every disease too is evolving, and to deal with the newer form or newer variant of the old diseases, we need new medicine. So in order to produce that new medicine, research and development department should have first conducted research in detail about what the disease is, and after that they will have to develop a cure. So when they keep developing new products, obviously they will be able to extend or expand their revenue as well. Then we have risk bearing economies. These are larger firms usually produce a large range of products which enables them to spread their risk. If one of their product fails, they are aware that they have a range of products from where they can earn profits without having to shut down. If the profitability of one product reduces, it can shift its resources, the firms can shift their resources to the production of more profitable products. For example, there was one kind of a Pantene shampoo, and I think it was in my late teens or my early 20s, I don't remember, but there was a certain variant of Pantene shampoo that was causing hair lice. Somebody told me, "Huh, Pantene, it causes hair lice." I was like, what? I'm very disgusted by hair lice, and I always take care that I don't get lice in my hair. So it was like that. So the Pantene, I think, had to discontinue that variant of shampoo without closing down. The company did not close down. The Pantene segment of Procter and Gamble did not close down. What did they do? They discontinued that shampoo, and they continued with other products in the similar product line. So they could spread the risk, means obviously some of their inventory must have gone to waste. Some of the inventory they would have to withdraw from store shelves, whatever steps they might have taken. But instead of saying, oh, ab to bahut nuksan ho gaya, they didn't do that. What they did was they said, okay, इसको डिसकंटिन्यू कर देते, बाकी जो भी प्रॉफिट है उसको रिमेनिंग प्रोडक्ट लाइन से जनरेट करेंगे, इतना रोना डालने की क्या ज़रूरत है, इसको फेंक दो, कोई मसला नहीं है, इसको डिसकंटिन्यू कर देते. ठीक है. सो दैट इज रिस्क बियरिंग इकोनॉमीज वेयर यू कैन रिड्यूस द कॉस्ट बाय ऑफरिंग अ रेंज ऑफ प्रोडक्ट्स एंड स्प्रेडिंग योर रिस्क. Then we have internal diseconomies of scale. Internal diseconomies of scale are normally associated with poor management, poor communication, and burnout of your most important asset, which is your employees. So, difficulty controlling the firm. What does controlling mean? Managers cannot supervise a huge team. One person can supervise as many people, right? But they can't supervise practically. You or I or anybody cannot supervise 100 people at a time. If the job requires people to be supervised, then of course this company will experience internal diseconomies of scale, because supervision is required and it is not provided, or it cannot be achieved. For example, in the absence of any supervision, people might and they do make mistakes, and mistakes from employees, they increase the cost for the organization, because task redo करना है, कोई चीज़ मैन्युफैक्चर कर ली है, उसको रीमैन्युफैक्चर करना है. So it's difficult to control the firm. Management becomes more complex. It does not stay clear किसको रिपोर्ट करना है, मैं किसी को रिपोर्ट करूं, क्या नहीं करूं, कैसे करूं. ठीक है, that everything becomes complex as the business grow. This in turn increases administrative cost. What is an administrative cost? Cost of the staff that conveys administrative cost is like implementation के लिए जो cost आती है, ठीक है ना. The firm may become slower in responding to changes which will also increase the cost for them. Next is communication problem. जितना ज़्यादा बड़ा staff उतना communication problem. Also इतने बड़े staff की needs का हिसाब रखना या उनका पता रखना मुश्किल हो जाता है, ठीक है ना. Firm has full knowledge. It can be difficult to ensure that everyone in the large firm has full knowledge about their duties and available opportunities, such as training. Also, they may not get the opportunity to effectively communicate their views and ideas to the management. तो इससे कॉस्ट कैसे बढ़ रही है भाई, आइडियाज ही तो नहीं बता पा रहे. इससे कॉस्ट ऐसे बढ़ रही है दैट यू स्टार्ट फीलिंग अनवैल्यूड एंड यू स्टार्ट फीलिंग अनसेटिस्फाइड. अनसेटिस्फाइड मतलब demotivated. When you are demotivated, the efficiency reduces, the output you produce goes down. When that output goes down, obviously efficiency for the company goes down. The less number of units you produce and the less number of hours you work, the greater your average cost will be. Then we have poor industrial relationships. Large firms may be better, may be at a greater risk from lack of motivation of workers, strikes, and other industrial action. It's because workers may have less sense of belonging, क्योंकि जितने ज़्यादा लोग होते हैं उतना मैनेजमेंट नीचे के लोगों को कम जानती है. टॉकिंग अबाउट ऑफिस स्टाफ, नॉट द लेबर स्टाफ, उसमें भी ऐसा ही होता है. जितनी बड़ी कंपनी होती है, अपर मैनेजमेंट एंड द डायरेक्टर्स एंड द ओनर्स, दे नो ओनली द मैनेजमेंट. वो भी कौन सी मैनेजमेंट? हायर मैनेजमेंट. और हर कोई ऐसा नहीं होता कि आपको सेंस ऑफ बिलोंगिंग फील हो, या हर कोई जो है इस चीज़ में ओके हो, ओके द बॉस डजंट नो मी, राइट. सो व्हेन यू हैव अ लो सेंस ऑफ बिलोंगिंग, then you are demotivated, and longer time will be required to solve the problem also, because you don't have frequent and direct connection with the decision makers. More conflicts may arise due to presence of diverse opinions, because sometimes what happens is that when employees, they feel demotivated, they feel not valued, they feel left out, then they pick on everybody and get into trouble with everyone. Even if they don't, during meetings they will raise their hands, they will throw an opinion there, and they would disturb the entire meeting and distort what was actually happening in the meeting. So diverse opinions होते हैं, हर किसी को handle भी करना नहीं आता. So in companies also the same people go and work in companies. अगर आपकी और मैं अपनी भी बात करूँ, suppose या आपकी अपनी नहीं, मैं किसी दो लोगों की बात करूँ, one of them is a very good communicator and is able to handle conflict and difference of opinion in a very sophisticated, decent manner. On the other hand, there's another person who doesn't even listen to the entire thing, and they start throwing tantrums. They start expressing their own opinion without valuing or without having to, listen to anybody properly, so that they could understand कि actually में मसला क्या है और इसको handle कैसे करना है. All of these are the reasons due to which companies experience diseconomies of scale. मगर ये कौन सी diseconomies of scale है? Internal diseconomies of scale है, ठीक है. Now we will talk about external economies and diseconomies of scale, not in this class but in the next class. For today, you get well soon, and I'll get back to you in the next class, inshallah. Take care. Allah Hafiz.